Hey everyone, Cynics here, and I hope you guys had a nice Thanksgiving last week. But I finally have a chance to get back in and do part three of our Sunken Forest Design Lab. So it looked like the clear winner of this one was Mirai, or however I say it, Mirre, with their kind of fantasy looking piece, which had like a character going into a sunken foresty home or, some kind of structure. I probably wouldn't have picked it simply for the reason that it's very kind of complete in its thumbnail. There's not much room for interpretation. So I mainly just focused on, trying to work on my rendering skills. And kind of do an underwater scene because I don't think I've ever actually painted any underwater scenes, and I seem to be running into that a lot with these design labs, which is definitely a good thing. Gets me out of my comfort zone. But trying things you've never tried before, such as an underwater, scene. So anyway, I think for just to start out, I worked on the background, and like I do with a lot of environmental stuff, I'm just gonna be working from back to front. So the main thing I wanted to do, start out with was just kind of establish some sort of color palette because obviously the thumbnail didn't have one. So that was kind of the main place where I had, full artistic freedom to just kind of go crazy and experiment. But like I said, not knowing how to really do underwater environments, I kind of, struggled with it a little bit. I wasn't sure. At first, I wanted to make it very bright and colorful, just because the character seemed kind of happy and lively and more animated, like something you would see in a cartoon or something. So I went with these very bright colors, trying to give it like a glow, like it was, that underwater glow that you sometimes see in underwater photography. But then I kind of changed. I wasn't sure, so I went to a more subdued palette. And you can see I kind of overlaid the thumbnail a little bit. I blew it up, just kind of overlaid it, just so I can kind of use it as a quick guide, just to establish some of my shapes and placement on things. But the other main reason that I just kind of blew it up and overlaid it real fast was just to give me some texture in my painting, because obviously you can go around quickly painting lines everywhere, but when you're just doing these blocks of colors, sometimes the lack of texture and grip to the painting just kind of distracts you so much. Everything looks so clean. All you see are these blocks of very hard colors from using a default brush in like a Painter or Photoshop. Now, one of the best ways to get away from that is to use a brush which has, a lot of texture built in. And there are a lot of great brushes for those, especially in Photoshop. And you can probably kind of search around and maybe find, packs of brushes that people have made, that artists have made more specifically, that are really tailored to just kind of giving you a lot of texture in the brush itself. And that's kind of one of the reasons that I don't want to recommend my brush. A lot of people keep asking, "Oh, what brush do you use? What brush do you use?" I use probably like the worst speed painting brush because it's just it's just real flat. It doesn't have any texture to it, and a lot of the times I feel kind of ashamed of it. I don't know if ashamed is the right word, but I get jealous. Like when I see other people, working with nice texture brushes, I'm like, wow, I should really, switch to that. But then I have to remind myself, it's not the brush. The brush doesn't matter. You can use any brush you want. It's not going to make a difference in your art. The main thing to focus on are just, values, colors, and the basics. So that's, another reason why it's not really important to care about what brush you use. Just focus on the basics, even if your brush is really simple and horrible, and maybe it's even uncomfortable for you to use. But you know what they say, kind of limitation breeds creativity. So you might be limited by your brush, but maybe that somehow creates your art to look the way it does. And I guess that's kind of the way with my paintings, in the past. They're kind of defined a little bit in style by the brush I use, and that's why I don't know, hesitant to go toward a texture brush, just because I feel like I'd maybe just be copying other people a little bit too much in style. But that's a lot of brush talk, and I'm kind of ignoring what I'm doing here in the painting itself. But that's kind of fun to get into random topics. So you can see I kind of quickly went with this color layer with my water at the top here, and I'm just kind of using a lot of horizontal strokes in the way I render the water, the way I make it look like it's water. And I think I've mentioned that before. I think we've had some environment stuff that has like a lake or something, but we've never been looking up. But I'm using basically the same technique and using a lot of horizontal strokes to just kind of show their reflections and ripples in the water. And you can hint at where the branches and the trees are going above the water by using, some darker horizontal strokes there. But you don't want it to be too clean. You still want it to look kind of chopped up and have a lot of choppiness to it, which I guess means chopped up. But so I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. But the main thing I wanted to do with the trees here was I tried changing the shape a little, but then I realized that it left too much kind of open area in the top middle. So I try to make subtle little changes to the composition where I see fit. I don't want anything to look like it's empty space or anything to look like it's too distracting for your eye. So there's a lot of little changes like that. But now I'm just trying to give these trees some color. And I think there was a lot of sitting around and doing subtle, hue changes and subtle cloudiness changes, and a lot of that stuff. And that's normally a bad sign when you're doing art. When you stop making bold changes, when you stop just drawing big things, and you start getting wrapped up in changing colors and hues, that's usually a sign that it's time to walk away from the piece for a little bit and maybe come back later. That's kind of one of my best cues anyway. As soon as you start seeing that, it's either time to, step back and think about what you're doing, or maybe just take a break, because it shows that you're not really thinking about, the full picture anymore. You're getting wrapped up in little things. You're trying to fix what you've done by really making subtle changes, when usually the best way to fix things when you don't like them is to start making big, bold changes. So get out your hard brush and start working, big changes. But you can see I'm still just going away because I was recording, and it's late at night, and I probably, didn't want to take a break because I'd already waited so long with the holiday weekends and everything, all these distractions that I wanted to get this finished. So I was maybe rushing myself a bit more than I should have. But you can see, man, I really wasted a lot of time just color correcting, adding cloudiness, and, just basically, I don't know what's a good word for it, but maybe dilly-dallying around. Um, but one of the changes I wanted to make, just when looking at the thumbnail, was that I wanted to add some like mossiness to the trees. That's a good way to get some extra texture out of them, especially since they're underwater. I figure maybe like little planktons and I don't know what the right word, but like that sea moss you see on rocks and things. That would be a good touch to add to all the trees, just to give them some extra personality. Because it's going to be hard to give things personality in a fast way when you're doing a speed painting. So you just kind of got to keep adding strokes, keep adding to what you've done. And the other thing that I should note is when you're trying to go from like a state of speed painting into something more rendered and finished, usually that's when you start switching your brushes out for more hard detailed stuff. So you can see here, like as I slowly try to get more detailed, I'm using harder brushes, kind of stronger value changes, stronger colors, and because that's what shows detail, is that level of contrast. It draws your eye in, and it makes you see stuff in much clearer ways. So that's kind of the only quick advice I can give when it comes to like transitioning from maybe your thumbnail painting into more finished rendered stuff, is start messing around with harder edged brushes, harder, smaller details. Just kind of work boldly with your strokes. So now I feel like I've established something of my environment, and I'm just gonna go around and add some more personality stuff or some liveliness, which is usually for me like the last step when I'm doing environments, is to add life, to bring some movement, to bring some personality. So there's a lot of like seaweeds I added, and I had accidentally cut out some of the recording there. There was a little break because I paused it because I got a phone call, and then I forgot to start it up when I started painting again. So one of the hazards of painting, I guess, and recording. But yeah, lots of details here. And I think it was a good sign because when I was adding my little seaweed and thing, I find that the value changes, while they don't look that strong when you just look at this piece. But when I tried to like do, just quickly do different seaweeds in different places, that the values and colors just look so different when I'd use the same color in one spot and another. It just looked drastically different. So I guess that shows that there was at least a good subtle difference in values and hues going along in the piece from side to side. But here's that little figure that Mireille had in her piece. I don't actually know if it's Sky Girl. But that piece that Mireille had this nice little character with like a lantern that they were carrying, and this flowing cape that just kind of, or cloak that was just kind of, trailing behind, and a nice little geometric shape of this kind of, I don't know, a fingernail type shape. I don't know what I'm saying. But yeah, I wanted to make it red just to kind of make it pop a little bit. But my brain's like, oh, well, you can't make it vibrant red because this is underwater, and you're not gonna have things be too vibrant. So once again, trying to find that balance and spending way too much time just trying to think, oh, should it be less vibrant? Should it be more vibrant? Do I need to bring in, more subtlety, or can I get away with doing things harsher? But you can see here for the glow, I did that same trick that I've done for a lot of things, which is to just quickly make like a white circle or a white spot where there is a direct light source. And then I take the glow brush, which is in Painter, and it's under the FX tools. And then you can quickly go over that white spot with like a larger glow brush effect. And you usually make your the color for your glow brush really close to black, and you maybe move it to the colored side a little bit, and that will give you a nice subtle glow that you can build up as much as you want. So the other little tip that I forgot to mention was for the water up above. I really wanted to kind of do a lot more texture than I had, so I went into the artist brushes, which are something they have in Painter, and I used the impressionist brush, and then instead, because I remember I was trying to think, how can I get a lot of little kind of directional kind of strokes in a small area, and thought, oh, I'll just use that impressionist brush because that's basically what it does. It makes things, have that impressionist style of little strokes just going along. So that gave me a nice little detailed structure of things. And the last thing I did was just experimenting with, those reflections of the refractions, I guess I should say, of light that you see underwater, against like the side of a pool, or just I guess anywhere underwater where the light gets refracted and messed up so much that you just see these weird little highlights that kind of come across in blobby little lines. So I tried those. I didn't want to make them too strong, so I just left them real subtle, and I think that's about it. So once again, we'll take a look at the thumbnail, and you can see that's kind of the inspiration for this piece. I didn't change things too much. Maybe if I picked a different thumbnail, I would have changed things a lot. But I just kind of left things basic, and once again, we just focused on the rendering. And here you can see the finished piece, which is just, basically the same thing, but with, a lot of little details and rendering touches thrown in. Basically a lot of colors and stuff. And I'm still debating how cloudy and murky I want the water to be, because I can't quite capture it, that underwater feel. I don't want it to look like we're just in a cloudy forest. That's kind of what I was struggling with, because I was like, oh, I don't want it to look like a cloudy forest, but I want it to have some color. I want you to be able to tell what color the trees are, and I want to kind of be able to bring in something, something visible. So I'm still messing with it a little bit, but I think that's about it for now. So hopefully this was, interesting to watch, slightly enjoyable. I know I kind of rambled on and got lost in my words a little bit. But yeah, that's what all that turkey and stuffing will do to you. So I think I'll be back shortly with, maybe we'll just start putting up design labs more often. But the other thing I want to do now is I think I'll start streaming maybe studies more. Because I can't emphasize enough how important it is to do studies either from life or from photos, but just trying to work on your study skills. And by study, I just mean recreate a photo or, what you're seeing in real life in a painting. So I'm going to do a lot of photo ref stuff, and I think I will try to stream those. And I'm going to try to do that a lot in December. That's my personal goal for December. So if you want to see my streams, I usually just quickly, type out on Twitter when I'm streaming, and that's kind of the only warning I give. But hopefully, I can do a lot more of them. Um, so I think that's all, and that's also a good place for me to answer little questions and interact with people and maybe look at portfolios. But anyway, that's a whole nother side thing. So streaming, but more videos, more design labs. I think I'll try to do more video sketchbook videos because they allow me to go over different subjects. But I guess that's all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.